Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, Carcass Pickens, all-time Red Raider recruiters, and what's a QB killer worth these days anyway? Next on Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks for joining us once again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Great to be back with you, wrapping up the week with you once again in the YouTube comments and your voices being heard. Appreciate every one of you out there every day on YouTube, either taking the show in there or via podcast, but especially those in the comments section. Sounding off, letting us know what you think or what you're wondering. And we got a few questions to get to here today, Mr. Level. And we're going to start with the situation that is not taking place in the 806, but West Virginia needs a new basketball coach. You might have heard by now a recycling scandal playing out in Morgantown. I don't have all the details, so we're not going to get into the weeds here. But from a basketball perspective, Chris, there are some interesting things to consider, and this is not lost on one Locked On Texas Tech viewer. Clayton Bones, hope I'm saying that right, Bones, asks this question, Chris. Is there anything for Tech fans to watch with the West Virginia situation? Wondering if Tech has connections to guys on their roster that could be on the move. Look, it's sort of a sad situation for these guys, clearly, who have had some plans impacted by this change, Chris. But a lot of good basketball players showing up on that roster in Morgantown this time around. Some will be on the move, maybe not all, but certainly some. And there are going to be plenty out there who are hoping to be suitors, right? So why not think of it from a Tech perspective? What's your feeling with this?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of different things that when you kind of look at how the situation in West Virginia affects Texas Tech. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The question here is asked about the roster, but the first thing that really kind of comes up, Cowan, is that they're trying to find a coach, and Ben McCollum's name has been prominently mentioned and widely reported as a potential candidate, and so. That was the first thing I thought of in that how it would have potentially affect Texas Tech. If McCollum is still in the thought process here, most tell me he is. Some say he's not. Who the heck knows? It's been a wild 3 months or so trying to follow this deal, and it's given me kind of tired head, to be honest with you. But if he goes to West Virginia, great. And if he doesn't, I guess great. I don't really know, but that was one of the first things I thought of. The second thing before we get to the roster is that it does make you wonder if West Virginia was going to be, thought to be like picked at a certain spot in the preseason thought process and the rankings of the league. Does this happening? Does it cause it to unravel? Is there no leadership? Do kids bolt? Is it a program that maybe you can jump ahead of maybe in the potential standing? So I thought about that as well.
Yeah.
But yes, to your point, I can't tell you specifically that there's people necessarily tied to anybody here, but I will tell you should watch that roster and any portal entry like a hawk. There are very few schools out there that have roster spots or scholarships available. I think there is a possibility of the Red Raiders pouncing on Mountaineer were they to get into the portal. I would offer that up. Yeah, I think so. I don't want to go too far into details there, but I would just say. I'm sure that roster in the last week has probably had everybody come after them. They're probably sitting there talking to each other. Do we stick together? Or some of them going, man, I'm out. This isn't for me. We don't know who's going to coach us. They've already told these assistants who we all know there's no promises being made there that they will even be kept. Just so you don't know which way it could go. I'll be shocked if they can keep their complete roster intact.
100%.
Yeah, that would really surprise me. And again, how long do they sit there and on ice and kind of let it play out? And maybe the Ren Baker, the athletic director, Gordon Gee, basically said, just give us a couple of weeks. Don't do anything. Give us a couple of weeks. If you don't like what we've done, we will, you can get in the portal and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know those conversations there. But they all definitely wanted to play for Bob Huggins. They're not going to get that chance.
Really good roster. Some really good players.
And it is. And so I would say that you see somebody jump in the portal from West Virginia and just start, just kind of pay attention there. Maybe it's a fit, maybe it's not. I just wouldn't rule anything out, I guess is my point.
Brilliant move by the Texas Tech staff to keep this spot open, knowing that it was just a house of cards in Morgantown and now in an advantageous position. So 4D level chess there. And before we leave it, Chris, I'm wanting to ask you, since the Deshaun Jackson edition, the Washington State transfer is, because when I'm thinking about, okay, which Mountaineers could hit the portal and watching them like a hawk. I mean, these are your words. Take this advice, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't say it lightly. Is front court shopping over? Are they still open to anything and everything as far as like best available players? Because it was seemingly to me a real priority. Hey, size. And maybe that never changes. I mean, you are playing freaking basketball after all. But is there like a clear priority, or is it just, hey, man, best player available? If we got a chance, we're going after it right now?
Yeah, I would say that there's still some things to work through as it relates to Deshaun Jackson. I'll just leave it at that. That's not a for sure 1,000% locked in type scenario there. And so I think though that, to your point, Cowan, I think you're trying to find best available. Yeah, I think there's I think if there's a really good guard out there, I don't think you're thumbing your nose at it. If there's a really good wing out there, I think that you would say, if you can help, then we're going to do it. If there's a really good big out there, I think that, so it just, I think you could check all the boxes. And I think you're kind of operating on two spots and left. And I think that you've got a potential visit coming in this weekend that is kind of in the wing category. And I think, so I wouldn't, in other words, if a big or a guard from West Virginia got into the portal, I think you would be interested in both if it made sense. I guess that's my point.
Sure.
You cannot have enough good quality guards, though. I would say that's what, if I was picking, I would prefer that. Basketball, gotcha. More often than not, you go small. You have a tweener playing in the post, and you play up tempo. You have positionless guys out there that can switch and do different things on defense. You can't just kind of say we're not going to have any size. We got 5'6", 4 guys out there, but you get what I'm saying. Kevin O'Banner was 6'6". He played a lot bigger than he was, and so as far as putting the pieces in place. Not trying to be cryptic. I'm just trying to say that there's a variety of different routes you could go. Sure. But if I'm leaning one way or the other, I would probably say guard or wing would be, but it's going to be best case scenario, like our best player available for sure.
Man, this thing just continues to turn and continues to be interesting for a variety of reasons. I mean, who can predict what's going to happen or why it would happen? But maybe Tech's still here with an opportunity to not only continue to make additions, but there could be some really impactful guys available. So something to keep a close eye on. We're essentially talking recruiting trail right now, and we'll stick with that theme coming up next, because it feels like right now on campus, you've got some really capable guys within Joey McGuire's football program. Of course, we spent time this week talking about their impact already, but got a question coming up ahead about all-timers. All-time capable guys on campus. We'll get to that up ahead on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, today's episode brought to you by Birddogs, making you look good with the most versatile shorts known to man. Most comfortable, best fitting, leaving you with that sculpted look you're after. And now made with cloud knit fabric. Organic, cage-free clouds. How many of them gave their lives for you to look this good? That's a number I won't share with you today, but just know it was a lot. Never sacrificing comfort or fit while making you look the way you want to look for all occasions. And of course, they've got that sweat-wicking fabric keeping you dry. Not restrictive like some of those other stiff shorts you may have tried on before. No, these stretchy pants, magical for your lower half. And of course, your better half is going to like it as well. For all occasions, Father's Day, Mother's Day, any day, Bird Dogs is the answer. So head on over right now to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. And with every order, they're going to throw in a free custom tumbler. That's right. With every order, a free custom tumbler right now at birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. You're going to be cool and dry all day long. And of course, you're going to have that slim, sculpted look without having to sacrifice any movement or comfort. It's the most versatile, best looking, best feeling pair of short pants you ever put on. Don't take my word for it. Head on over right now and find out for yourself at birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. And remember, with every order, you're getting a free custom tumbler right now at birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day, whenever, wherever, however you're making it happen. We appreciate it on YouTube or anywhere you get them chaos. It's voices from the YouTube comments today on the program. And this question is an intriguing one because I always like to dip into the historical perspective of our resident Locked On Texas Tech historian. That's the great Chris Level, because Chris, you've been on the scene for quite some time, of course, as a fan for even longer, student at one point in time, but as somebody who's not only covering Texas Tech sports or Texas Tech football specifically, the lifeblood of the program, as it was once coined here in the LBK by a senator. Recruiting. You've been as up close and personal to that as anyone has been. And this question stood out to me. I wanted to get to from it. Jane is here, 0112, who says this: Chris, in all of your years of covering Red Raider recruiting, who is the single most impactful recruiter you can remember? This is a tough question, I'm sure, Chris, because probably a good choice here or there, but single most impactful, is there someone that comes to mind easily, or a group of guys? What do you think?
It's a really difficult question to answer because in this space, every staff has a different setup, different organization with the way they do things. Obviously, it's changed over in years recent because you've got bigger staffs, like on-campus staffs that kind of are identifying. The portal has changed things and all that to where recruiting is a bit different than just going to recruit high school kids, because you're recruiting, and identifying portal entries as well, which is a whole completely different dynamic in and of itself. And not to get caught up into the recency bias here, but I mean, I think that very early on, I mean, Blanchard and the Brian Nance kind of combo, and you've got, Jake Pittman, and there's some, there is, some folks over there that kind of are mindful and mining the store 24/7. Okay. And they are identifying and all that. And so this process is as good as I've seen, I will say that. As far as like a blast from the past on a great recruiter back in the olden days, which is what, 10, 12 years ago, when you didn't have, you had your position coaches, you had maybe an ops guy, but there was not a lot of extra help there. I mean, it's and so various staffs would say, they would break it up into regions, like, hey, you have Oklahoma, you have East Texas, you have this or that. Other staffs say, hey, you just go recruit offensive guys, and the guys that, if there's a way we can tie it into where you can kind of recruit your position or whatever. There's just a variety of different ways it can be set up and structured. It's all up to the head coach. I always I go back to a couple of guys that Tommy Maynard was really a good one for me. And the reason I mention that is because he was a phenomenal – they say this about college football coaches, whether you're a head coach or position coach. You're one of three things. The really, really good ones are check all three boxes.
Yeah.
X's and O's, like can you motivate and get guys to play hard and all that stuff, and recruiting. Those are the kind of the three categories that people kind of look at. And when you look at the really good head coaches out there, they start checking all those boxes. I mean, Joey McGuire, nobody's going to really get into a lot of conversations about his X's and O's knowledge typically, but they're going to tell you recruiter, absolutely 100. The motivation and the fiery personality, 100. And yes, he knows plenty of football, but he's so good in the other two categories that you don't even worry about the other one and all that. But you get my point.
Yeah.
Tommy Maynard was somebody that was an elite outside receivers coach. I think the last year he was here, both of his guys on the outside, Darren Moore and Eric Ward, had over 1,000 yards of receiving, both of them. So 2 1,000-yard receivers. He coached them both. Hard to be better than that. But he recruited. He cared. His dad obviously spent a million years around this program. Carlos Maynard is one of the smartest football people I've ever met. But Tommy really cared about Texas Tech. But he recruited guys like LaRaven Clark, like who was kind of off the radar at the time, beat Texas out for him, beat LSU out for him, got Jakeem Grant, took Jakeem Grant away from Tulsa. And I remember Tommy saying, hey, man, he's Tyrone Thurman. That's what I think. I remember coming to watch Tyrone whenever my dad was here coaching back in the 80s and all that. Jakeem Grant was an NFL player, still is. LaRaven Clark had several years in the NFL. And all that. And those were two just guys that I remember, but he was one of the best I've seen. And it wasn't, there's various labels that get associated with, Robert Prunty got a lot of hype back in the day. He got Jackson and all that, but we were so recruiting starved that I think you kind of looked at him. He was not the best recruiter I'd ever been around, though. There was a lot of smoke and mirrors there.
Smoke and mirrors. That's exactly
with Robert Prunty.
What I was thinking.
Yeah. And there was some he did land some guys. Don't mistake what I'm saying. But yeah, it was I'll just leave it at that. I don't
praise Jesus. Let's just say
that. Yeah. But hopefully that answers the question. There's so many guys that you could mention. I thought Seth Luttrell did a good job when he was here. I think Otis Mounds, Seth Luttrell did a really good job in Oklahoma. Otis Mounds was on Tuberville's staff. I'm trying to think of some more recent guys that have done. Keith Patterson was a really good recruiter as the DC under Matt Wells. Think about the job that Keith Patterson did from the portal standpoint and the guys that you're still, that you've got in your program even to this day. But I think the process they have in place now is absolutely as good as I've seen. And I think, James Blanchard, Brian Ants, guys like that have a lot to do with that.
Yeah. And in some ways it's just, I'm glad they're at the leading edge of it, but in some ways it's just the evolution, Chris. It's almost like saying this air conditioning is the best indoor cooling process I've ever seen. What were you people thinking back in the 1700s? Right. It's a totally different approach. I mean, why did Mike Leach or Spike Dykes not have a process similar to this one? Because the industry did not exist as it exists. Exactly right.
And the resources.
Totally new. And the resources.
You didn't have the financial wherewithal to do. I mean, it's basically, and your Texas Tech has been short on this for many, many years, and they are catching up, and they're in the middle of this fight now. But it's Nick Saban kind of started it, and then Chris Beard picked up on it from a basketball standpoint. It's all that the analyst type roles, whether it would be recruiting or analyst or somebody that can help, fill in the gaps. But the Red Raiders are well staffed, well funded, and it means everything. Trust me.
Man in the shop 24/7. I like the way you said that. There's got to be somebody at this Red Raider recruiting general store for a variety of needs. And it seems like you have those roles filled that are making a lot of hay with it, man. I would have got an A+ on that test. I knew Tommy Maynard was going to be the answer. He would have been my answer, and my purview doesn't extend as far or anywhere near as closely as Chris's does. But within some recent history, he's a guy that just really, really sticks out to me. Otis Mountains is a blast from the past. That's not one I recall, but now I do, and remember some of the impact there. But yeah, Jakeem Grant alone, I mean, just one of the all-time finds and takes. Jakeem Grant would have taken a blowtorch to the Conference USA record book. Can you imagine if he would have been a Tulsa receiver? One of the all-time finds. And I kind of thought, yeah, maybe I've just got some West Texas double T bias with the Maynard family in general, but there's nothing wrong with that. Take me away. Yeah, guilty, Your Honor. All right. Appreciate the question. We're back for one more coming up ahead. There's been a lot of talk of stars recently as far as Joey McGuire and company's pursuit of guys on the recruiting trail. Let's get to positional impact and a question as it relates to our preference next on Locked On Texas Tech. Glad to have you along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech with Chris. I'm Casey coming to you from the great state, and always a great day whenever we're joining you once again. So thanks for joining us all week long. Appreciate it on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Special shout out to those everydayers in the audience, and of course those providing fodder for today's episode in the YouTube comments. Keep them coming. One more to wrap it up here today, Chris. We're going to stick with the football theme. And this question from Thomas Castillo, who says, if you guys could pick only one 5-star recruit to sign in a class, what position would it be? Great show, watching every day. And if I've proven one thing via these voices from the YouTube comment episodes, Chris, it's if you compliment us, you got a great chance to make it into the episode. Thanks for being out there, Thomas. Chris, 5 stars are great, but I don't think they're all created equally as far as impact positionally. So we've been talking a lot about a 5-star wide receiver. That could be your choice, or do you go somewhere else if you said, man, if I could just have straight talent, straight measurables, all in one package, I want him standing here in this spot on the field. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously we've talked a lot about 5-star rankings with the Micah Hudson recruitment and things like that. The wide receiver is a sexy position, if you will. But that wouldn't be the position if I could only get a 5-star, and that receiver wouldn't be the position I would probably look at, because I would want somebody that would impact the game, I guess, on more plays, and not that Micah Hudson can't or any receiver can't, but I would have somebody that is either touching the football every play or somebody that is running after somebody that is touching the football in every play.
One of two parties in that dynamic. Okay.
I think that you look at, and look, Texas Tech has been very fortunate to have really outstanding quarterback play over the years. We know what Graham Harrell's impact was. We know what Pat Mahomes' talent level was. You think you have a really, good duo here on campus right now and all that. But yeah, I mean, I think you would, if you could guarantee yourself a phenomenal quarterback, you're always in a game. You always have a chance if you've got a certain player at that position. Because even as bad as Tech's defense was when Mahomes was here, you always had a chance because he was your signal caller. And I think that is a position that you just, not that a 5-star quarterback is going to guarantee you success.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I'm getting to pick, I have to, that's got to be at the top of the list. The other one is, I mean, if Tyree Wilson is a high school prospect and he's a 5-star guy, that's the kind of guy that I want to bring in here. Yes. Like I would put that position at the top of the list, like an edge guy, somebody that impacts the game greatly and that can play the run, that can rush the passer, that just causes problems, that's twitchy, all the things that Tyree Wilson was. So I would say those would be my 1 and 1A answers, if you will.
I like it.
Yeah, I just I don't know if a running back can dominate the game anymore. I mean, Bijan Robinson last year for Texas is as 5-star as you're going to get, and is he that much better than like your Taj and Saradrick combination? I mean, when he was at his best, he was lightning fast. But you caused him to fumble in overtime, and you beat him. You think about receivers. I mean, receivers can kind of take over a game, certainly.
Sure.
But I would go to edge rusher or QB, and in the NFL they would even kind of lean on like a left tackle, like an elite offensive tackle. I would say positionally, like as a group, if I could load up at one spot, I would almost always pick either O-line or D-line to be like, we want to build our team. If I could have, what one position group would you want to be the best at? It would be either one of the two lines for sure, because it gives you so many chances to do everything else that you would want. I would probably, on the lower list, probably drop a corner on there. If you could have just an elite level corner that just would lock up one side of the field and all that, it makes everybody else better. So I'm just looking for ways that impact the game and the team in more ways than just, he's on the field. And I just, so those would be my answers. I don't know if I'm making sense to anybody or not, but that's the way I look at it.
I thought it would be obvious to go in the trenches, because that's where games have been won and lost for the entire history of football, evolving to a degree. And I think it's interesting that you bring up quarterback. To me, I would still be talking either defensive tackle or defensive edge rusher, quarterback killer, because even if the dude is not sacking a quarterback per se, all 11 people on the offensive side and that offensive coordinator have to know where he is. Blocking schemes are accounting for this guy. And just like in some ways you were talking about with the wide receiver, a really great one, the defense has to account for where that guy is and what he's doing, and that may open up some other things. It works the same way, of course, but I'm still inclined to always go defense, and up front clearly is where you're going to really wreak some havoc. Your choice of a DT or somebody maybe on the edge could be debatable. Offensive tackle is clearly one that crosses your mind, but I think the quarterback selection is really interesting, Chris, especially, on the college level, because I'm just thinking as far as football evolves, well, what is a quarterback killer really worth if he comes in the style of, say, James Harrison? Once upon a time, all pro. Now, a guy that's going to cost you 85 yards in penalties every game. You better get your money's worth if you're going to take a penalty. Like the quarterback needs to be on the sideline if you're going to get the 15. That's the only fair trade, because your dude's going to get tossed out of the game. So quarterback may be a better selection now than it was like 20 years ago to really and I get what you're saying anyway, really in any era, say you've got a chance if you're within striking distance late in the game if you got a great quarterback. But I don't know. It may be a better choice now than it used to be just because of how much, they're protected. I mean, that's just the way the game has kind of evolved. But, you can't really get away from the trenches, can you? Even with as much physicality as they try to take out of it, that's still really where the wheel is turned, seems like.
Yep. I don't disagree.
Appreciate all the questions and comments in the YouTube comments this week. Keep them coming. We'll be back around to scoop them up, about a week from now. And appreciate you joining us throughout the week. Those everydayers out there, a special tip of the cap to yous and yours. Join us on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And we hope you will subscribe as well so you never miss an episode. Stay tuned. Could be an exciting weekend. It's always exciting when we're with you. Chris will be back around next week together once again. Looking forward to it, man, and appreciate all the time this week. Enjoyed it.
Enjoy the weekend, people. Keep hope alive, and we'll talk to you next week.
You got it. We'll be right back here once again on Locked On Texas Tech.